Hey guys, thank you for joining us today in Obsessed Hub. We're talking about a bit of a hairy subject today. I don't know, hairy, taboo, the kind of subject that not many people like to discuss. And we're talking about suicide. Have you thought of doing it? What are your thoughts? Do you have any experience with it? Do you know somebody that has? And I have two amazing guests with me today. I've got the beautiful Renee Kosh, who's joined me a few times. And you all know Ziggy as well. Thank you for joining us today, guys, and actually for sharing and being willing to share your stories. Okay, so a little bit of intro. Go, Renee.
Okay, I'm first up, everyone.
Yeah.
Yes. So my name's Renee Kosh, and I'm here today not just to talk about, the losses that I've had to do with suicide, but also being a person that has actually been down that path and gone and been in the moment of wanting to do that action and how it felt and why I felt it and what I actually needed in that moment.
Yeah. And we've all, I can't speak for everybody, but I have also been in the same space. You get to a point where you're just like, too fucking hard.
Yeah, overwhelmed.
Yeah, and Ziggy, you've got a pretty very close to home experience. I don't know if you have a personal experience with it, but your brother committed suicide in 2017.
Yeah, he did October 2017, so it's pretty sad. So.
Yeah. I would have been hectic. What was that like? I know that's
not easy now either.
Yeah. I remember in 1998, I had a boyfriend that actually committed suicide. He jumped off a building in front of everybody. It was horrific. And it's all well and good to kind of like recant that. I actually wasn't there. I was guilty there, but I wasn't there.
That was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, he left some very important people in my life anyway distraught. And I don't know if they consider that, And this is the thing, this is why we wanted to have this discussion, because in my life, when things get too hard or with shit that you go through, like sometimes I'm 42 now, you go through shit and you're just like, fuck, is this going to happen again? Like, just stuff that happens, work pressures, life pressures, relationship pressures. And you get to a point and you have these mini moments where you're just like driving along the road and you just go,
what if?
Yeah, what if? If I just jerk this wheel to the left. But I mean, and it really is, I don't know if I'd ever have the guts to do it. But it's a pretty lonely place to be in.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I'm not considering
anyone else.
I'm not.
No.
I'm not. Well, actually, it's the one thing that keeps me, the one thing that does actually keep me kind of guided back to where I'm meant to be with my kids.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of think about them and you're like, what would it be? But that's the thing, I've lost a few friends myself to suicide. And there's one thing that and you may have experienced this at your brother's funeral, where everyone says the same thing. They never seem like the sort of person that would do this.
We never saw the signs, or we can't believe that this has happened.
Did you? Did you see the signs?
He growing up, he had he's a very smart man, but he had a lot of trouble. He was bashed on his way home from work one night, so that led him down the path of pharmaceutical medication. He was on painkillers for the rest of his life from that. And then it just got worse. So I remember a few times, one in particular, my dad and I came back from work, and we've just seen the workshop full of blood in the bathroom, and there was trails of it out. So then I had a look, and I found my brother like hiding underneath the table at the back of the workshop with a rag around his neck. So yeah.
And that was an unsuccessful attempt?
Yeah, I guess he just thought, stuff it, no one's here, and he did that. He was, very resentful when he did it, and Dad took him up to the doctor and got him stitched up, and I cleaned up, and.
And I don't and please don't answer if it's too painful or whatever have
you.
But when that happened, what was he saying? What were the kind of things he was saying? Because I mean, you hear of all the stories where people survive. You hear that there's shows, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I
survived. And they say that the minute that they do it,
they regret it.
Yeah.
And he was just very calm. He didn't really say much about it. I didn't speak to him about it. It was a bit of an unwritten thing between myself and him. We just, we just acknowledged it and tried to take care of it, kind of thing. But, I think I would have been about 16 at the time. Yeah, so I was pretty young. Yeah. So I was probably, younger than I needed to be to actually witness that kind of thing.
and to process it as well
Yeah.
at 16.
Well, you don't. I guess at 16, I didn't really realize, and I just,
Yeah.
I didn't. I was like, I knew what he was trying to do. I thought, well, and then probably going back a bit further, I think I was about 13 at the time. My sister actually tried to commit suicide at the same workshop out the back.
So that's two. So are they both
Two.
like same?
So so brother and sister. But yeah, so my sister tried to. She tipped kerosene over herself and she set herself on fire. Yeah. So my dad had to put a blanket over her to put her out.
And how's she going?
She had burns pretty much right up to her neck, and all her hands, everything was gone. So
Is she
pretty
still with us?
Yeah, she's still there. I don't talk to her. She she's not the best frame of mind person. So we've let her do her own thing. We haven't really spoken to her for 20-something years.
You know, when you have the opportunity to actually speak to people that have gone through that process, and that's the thing that I because I can say from my experience, like I seemingly have my shit together. I've got companies, I've got 3 kids, I've got a marriage, like people that meet me go, you're always so upbeat and positive, but I have very, very, very dark moments. So I can only say from my perspective, and all I can come up with is I'm too much of a pussy. Like, and I don't know if that's the right response.
How about selfish?
Yeah.
That's how I see it. Like
I couldn't do it to my kids.
No, and I think that's the selfish part that I'm trying to refer to is
The people that are left behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you sit there and go, well, it's an easy option for me. Like, it's been a few times I just wanted to drive over a bridge and just jump off. No one will really give a shit.
It's like the easy way out.
Well, yeah.
But they do give a shit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but your family does at the end, but you don't really think of that at the time, do you?
No. It's like a very lonely place to be, I think, in that moment as well, like, and for myself, I'm speaking with my own experience when I tried and I attempted about 10 years ago now. And in that moment that I went through the process and I did all the things and where I went and what I took and how I did it, it was like I had tunnel vision. It was like nothing actually was responsive in my brain except for I need to stop what I'm feeling.
Can you walk me through like where and again, like if you're not comfortable, then don't.
Yeah.
But if you can walk me through, what was it that triggered that? Was it just like too much? You had too much and then just went, I've had enough? Or was it something that triggered you?
I think it was something that triggered me back then, but it was like a buildup of everything that I'd gone through over so many years. And it was like everything that I was feeling in that moment, I just wanted the pain to stop and I didn't know how else I could stop it. So it wasn't that I wanted to actually go. I just wanted the pain to stop. And so I went I went to several chemists, and back then it was when you could buy anything over the counter.
Good old 80s, 90s.
Yeah, good old 90s.
Early 2000s.
Early 2000s, right?
We're not that old.
I need, yeah.
We are not that old.
and I just had this tunnel vision. So I went to like 3 different chemists and I bought the medication. I went through the drive-through. I bought the alcohol. I drove into an industrial estate. I drove down behind the buildings in a bushland in the industrial estate, and I sat there and I took all the medicine. I drank all the alcohol, and then as I felt myself going out, that's when I contacted. It was like kind of like this moment of realization of, hang on, what have I done? And by that stage, it was like I was out. And then I remember coming to in hospital to a sternum rub. So I was being sternum rubbed as I was coming into emergency, and then out again, and then woke up to my friends around my bed like, what have you?
So what did you call? You obviously called someone.
I did. I called my ex-partner at the time who I was with, and he's like, "Where are you? Where are you?" And I could hardly get the words out of where I was.
So I'm just thinking, like, this is the thing, right? So you get to a point, and the more of these stories that I hear and the more that I see, most of us don't really want to go. We just get to a point where
you just want the pain to end.
Yes. Yeah. It's like too much. It pains so much. It's like, how do you stop it?
So can I ask then, why are you still here? What is it for you that has made not necessarily the pain go away, but the pain more manageable?
For myself, and and leading up, like over the years as well, I've still thought about it. I think for myself, I think, okay, yes, the pain is immense. Yes, I feel like if there was a button and I could push it in the moment that I was and I could check out, everything would go away. But then what about my kids? What about what can I have or eventuate from this? So I would think to myself, what positive things can I look at? What am I missing out on? What will my kids think? Who will find me? The person that finds me, what will I put them through? And so I kind of like in those moments, I kind of like stepped myself through the process of talking myself out of it because of that attempt 10 years ago, I kind of been there. So I think it comes down to, reaching out to someone. So I had that person that I could go to and I could say, hey,
I suppose in that moment when you have reached out, you got a response. So it's like, actually, people give a shit.
Totally. Yeah.
So you had that maybe, what's the word? Validation?
Validation. Yeah. That I am worthy and that everything's going to be okay. And this isn't the answer because where do I go now?
So because I know it's hard, like it's incredibly hard. And from you, like you were 16 when you saw your brother with his first attempt.
Yeah.
Were there subsequent attempts after that?
I believe he tried another time with drugs, alcohol. He was an alcoholic, I guess because of what happened to him. It got to a stage where he'd take a box of Panadol in one go and it wouldn't affect him.
Yeah, wow.
So it was pretty bad. And he had me going into the chemist to buy him Panadol and Panadine Forte because the pharmacist was like, we're not giving it to you. No.
Yeah. What's that like? Because that's another part of kind of like, like I've got family members that have got drug addictions and I think it can be very similar and can be viewed in that, like people that have repeat attempts at suicide.
Yeah.
It can be that thing and they can become addicted to a lot of the facets, the attention, all of that kind of stuff. And it's not, please, like I'm not saying that that's what that is, but there are many facets towards suicide that could become addictive qualities, I think.
He never portrayed anything like that. Like he was a hard worker, he'd do anything for family. And, most of the family just shat on him. And that was the problem. And there's a backstory there with the sister. And I got two sisters, but there's another backstory with them and what went around it. And, it's a bit of a sad situation there. But, as time went on, he went back to Austria to see his family. And we were all kind of hoping he would have stayed there. Yeah. And he came home. And then, 2017.
What was in Austria?
Just other family. Because my parents grew up over there.
Yeah.
And, so.
Yeah, and so he returned. And when he did return, was he here long? Yeah,
he was here for a fair while longer. And it just got to a point where, it's hard.
Oh, no, darling, take your time.
I think as well, and personally, and again, like Hayley said, if it's hard to answer, please don't answer. But I think the pharmaceuticals have got a lot to answer. I think that pharmaceutical drugs are actually worse than, street drugs. And they kind of put this haze, this, they mess the mind and then the mind's actually, not thinking straight or, it's messing up the communication in your neurotransmitters and then it's making it very dark and gloomy and grey. And then your brother may have had PTSD.
Yeah, he would have had it from the accident.
Yeah, from the accident and then all those things.
And this is the thing, right? And because it's so easy to go into a hospital, I had an experience like with I'm not going to say who, but a family member, same situation. Like we have what I repeatedly myself tried to get help for her. But you go to the hospital and it's like she needs help because she's considering suicide, but or she's so crazily self-harming with meth and other things and getting her to a point where she looks like death. Yeah. And she's asking for help. But because they can't actually see it, it's not a broken bone, it's not a wound, they're not bleeding out. And I suppose in your brother's situation, that could be a very different thing. And until it becomes an external bleeding or a physical, visual, physical thing.
Mhm.
I don't think it's just not given enough respect. Like I took her to the hospital and they were like, she's not bad enough. I'm like, how bad does she need to be?
Yeah.
Then the problem is you go to the doctor and they say, oh, you're happy. You're overly happy. We'll give you some medicine.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
you're depressed. We'll give you some medicine.
Absolutely.
And they just use it as a way to cover up from their own shit.
Yeah, that
and
they,
their
what
own-
they don't see, or they can't. It's they don't have
Can't
the
work out or
tools
interpret.
or the ability to be able to,
Yeah.
send them somewhere. And again, someone that even if you Google, you Google in Google, I feel like killing myself, or how to kill yourself, or any.
Comes up with Lifeline.
It comes up with Lifeline and mental health.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't think that suicide is a mental health thing, because I've lost two really close friends to suicide as well, and my brother-in-law last year. And my first friend, it was because she had broken up with her partner. Next day she killed herself. She took her own life. The hurt was too intense. Another friend I lost to suicide, I was his last stop. And it took me a few years to get over that, because I was thinking, why didn't I see that? But it was because of his sexuality, and he was gay, and he couldn't, and his parents didn't accept that. So I believe that that's why it was just too much for him to feel accepted.
Too much internal shit.
Totally. Yeah. And then my brother-in-law last year, he had attempted the first time. He came to me. I was talking to him. He was seeing counselors. He was seeing people, and then he did it. And, so it's like, I kind of feel that, different people have different places of where their mind's at or how they feel. But I think that the biggest thing here is that the loneliness, and there's not that help. If there was that help there to say, you don't have mental health, you're just human.
This is the thing, right? So you just said, let's go back to the Google thing, right? So you Google it, right?
Yeah.
And you're thinking, I want to kill myself.
Yeah.
I'm going to attempt suicide. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And you Google it, how to kill myself. And
Yeah.
it comes up with Lifeline, and then mental health.
Mental health. Yeah.
The word mental health for me is such a negative, and it's perceived as a negative thing.
Yeah.
I think that word should be changed anyway.
Totally.
I don't think we should be calling it mental health.
I'm going to interrupt you here. I'm just going to jump in. So we've had Debbie say, I think it's so hard to keep fighting for survival when you are alone. When there seems no way out, you just want the pain to stop. Everything just stop. People say I'm here for you, but they're not really. They have no idea that all you want is a way out.
Yeah.
They constantly tell you to do this and to do that. Hey, we have probably already tried it. For myself, I'm exhausted. I try everything and hit nothing but dead ends. I have a physiologist.
Nice work, Nat.
I have done everything to find my way out of this black. And then the comment ends. So what would you guys say to Debbie now?
I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how else to respond to that. Like, I totally get it and I understand it. And well, number one, the feeling of being alone is actually a feeling of being alone. It's not necessarily real. So, and as silly as it sounds, like if you're having those feelings, I treat everything like a business decision. I have to sleep on it. And I have to look at my environment. What's the landscape like? Have I been drinking? Have I had a particularly stressful day? Who have I been hanging out with that day? Who have I spoken to? All these different things. I have to check in with myself, because sometimes the way I'm feeling is not actually the way I'm feeling.
Yeah. It could be from other things that have made you feel
Different
that
energies.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like,
People around you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a big thing as well. It's the people around you. And then some people will say, this is, your attention seeking, or they don't take it seriously, or they don't understand it and they get cranky. They get angry as well. Some people get angry at their friends or family, like, you're saying this again.
or like I'm feeling like suicidal. Don't you dare do
Yeah,
that. It's just like,
But most of the people that actually do say that, they don't do it. And the hard part is
The
that it's an
quiet ones.
attention thing, or it's a way to see who's actually there from if that actually did hit the fan.
Mhm.
And like my brother, he didn't say anything. Like, we had the cops call us. He was missing for a week. So, so when you want to do it, I think there's just a
make the
switch that
decision.
flips,
Mhm.
and
It
is.
and they're like, that's it. It's enough.
oh
Yeah,
shit.
it's a
Okay, I'm just
switch.
gonna we've got a mystery guest behind us that's gonna say something, but I will touch back on that.
Thanks, Hayley. Look, I tried to commit suicide in 2016 in October, and it was just before my birthday. I'd reached a massive low point. I'm a successful businessman, and 3 a.m. in the morning, I'm in my shed looking for a ladder. Had the rope around my neck. I was ready to go. and consciously couldn't find the ladder. Just the ladder was not in the shed for some reason.
Wasn't meant to be there.
Wasn't meant to be there. But at the moment when it was there and I'm tightening the rope around my neck and choking myself, going, I just got to end this. I've got to get out from here. 2 years later, I lost a nephew to suicide. He was 18. And he was quiet, never said anything about it. But the system that is there to support us even in the aftermath of this, I ended up in the Belmont Mental Hospital. And it's not there to support what's happened. They classify you, they take you and they say, well, you fit this bracket, this is what's happened, and
they label you.
We've diagnosed you, you need antidepressants. No, we just need to feel loved.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's just that feeling of loved. It's an emptiness that our society has created, that as a man, as a woman, being able to have that connection with someone where it doesn't matter, you can be vulnerable and you can open up and say, I'm not coping. I'm really not coping. Everyone walks down the street and you say to someone, how are you feeling today? Oh, I'm great. Yeah, bullshit.
It's
Tell
a
me how
lie.
you're feeling.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
bullshit. Tell me the truth.
I'm that
Like,
person though, aren't I?
give
If
me-
I'm not doing good, I'm like, I'm fucking having a shit day.
But you know what? They don't want you to have that answer
But they
because
don't,
they don't want
yeah.
you. They don't want to stop and give you the time of day.
no,
Yeah.
no, I know.
And then people
Every-
don't know how to handle the answer if you do say that I'm having a shit day or
Yeah.
I'm feeling down or
Yeah.
I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling this. People are like, oh, hang on a minute. Why did I even ask?
They
that
actually
question?
don't want it. Like it's just, hey, how you going? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can be as simple as, do you want a hug?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I just give you a hug? Because
Yeah.
we love you.
Yeah.
You're appreciated. You've got a big part to play in this planet. Doesn't matter what you do.
Do you know, I was when I was and I tell this story a lot, but when I was younger, when I was 21 and I was hanging out in the eastern suburbs of Sydney and I was feeling very low about myself and I used to think about it all the time. I used to think about killing myself all the time. And sorry. So instead of that, like I'd hit myself or like just like look in the mirror and say that I would hate myself.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until I was having dinner.
I was about to do that.
I'll make it happen.
Share 'em around.
So I'd have dinner at one of my boyfriend's house, who I'm still very good friends with and love him dearly. And I met an incredible man by the name of Simon Reynolds. And it wasn't anything that he did. Like he didn't do anything for me. It's just something that he said. And we went around the table and we had all of these discussions. It was just my value of self-worth that I had been ingrained into me no matter what had happened, like in my childhood or, external voices becoming my internal voice. And it was just something he said. We're going around the table and everyone was like telling their success stories, oh, I'm writing 3 books and I'm finishing this degree and I'm doing that. And I've, been in the High Court today and I've told this story. And Nana Anna, tell us about your, survival of the Holocaust. And I'm just sitting there and it came around to me and I was just like, crickets, going, I am fucking nothing. And I'll never forget how I felt at that. And it was one Friday night dinner. And I was like, I work in a bar. Like, I just had nothing. Like, I had nothing. I felt like
No
I had nothing to
substance.
give, right? I had plenty to give. I just felt like I had nothing to give. Next Friday came along. Same deal, going around the table. Everybody check in with everybody, right? And Simon gave me a book. And this time we went around the table and I just went, I'm starting a business. It's called Pause. I started that night. I was like, I'm thinking of doing this because they're encouraging a beautiful family dinner. So the previous dinner, they were like, okay, what do you want to do? And they asked me those questions instead of just letting me float around and go, and then having that judgment of like, oh, she's just a fucking loser. They asked me, like, Simon asked me the question, like, have you thought about what you want to do? And I kind of like a flower went, oh, well, I was thinking about doing this. The next Friday or the next couple of Fridays, he brought me a book. And it was to this day, I have never read it, never read the book. It was by Prue Goddard. And it was Women in Business by Prue Goddard, right? Never read the book, but I read the first page. And on the open page, it said, Dear Hayley, may all of your porcelain roses blossom. Love, Simon. Right? And that's all I fucking needed. I just needed someone to believe in me.
To show validation.
To validate me.
Yeah.
And this is the fucked up thing because people will spend, and this is what's crazy out in society, right? People will say things, you don't need validation. Actually, sometimes you do.
Yeah, you do. Sometimes you do need that validation or that reassurance or
The pat on the back, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
the
It's like
pat
when you
on the
have
back.
kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally.
Like you're actually pretty cool. And I
Yeah.
think your ideas are cool.
Yeah.
You go for it, kid.
But the thing is, it's easier for people to shut someone down because of their own insecurities.
Absolutely. And they can't
Can't
don't
deal with
know
it.
how to deal
And
with it.
a lot of people, you have a circle of friends you've had for 20 years and they want to keep you there. And the second that you want to leave and do something that you want to do with your life, they don't like that.
Yeah, crab mentality.
Yeah, they want to hold you back.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate that day, I think. I really was.
That feeling of appreciation is something that you can give to anyone.
Yeah.
And,
absolutely.
it's
It's a gift.
it's a gift. It's if you, and one of the biggest problems we have in Australia is the tall poppy syndrome.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
huge.
Yes.
It just, if we change that culture in our society and we change it and we show become a culture of appreciation
Mm.
and celebrate each other,
Absolutely. I
This-
agree.
this goes away.
Yeah.
But that's
You know,
a
if you-
social media issue too.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
it's gotten worse ever since they've actually brought that in.
Proliferated it.
And
Yeah,
it's-
yeah.
It's pushed people apart from sitting at a table that we are now talking or having a drink or a cigarette or whatever.
Because people aren't appreciating their it's gratification.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of gratitude, it's becoming gratification.
Gratification.
Yeah.
Instant
Yeah.
gratification. Or if
Yeah.
I'm not getting it, I'm not worthy. Therefore, I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than that simple, you're worthy. You're meant to be here. You're here to have this experience.
Absolutely.
I remember I had a shitty day. I was working for a law firm. Amazing boss. The job wasn't the issue. It was just a shit day. It was after my brother passed. And I went down to a local cafe. I sat there, had a coffee. This guy turns up in a suit, sits down, put his hands in his head. And I thought, fuck, he's got a worse day than me.
Mm.
You know? So yeah, I poured him a coffee. I didn't say who I was. So don't need anything.
And you know what? Just from you doing that,
I could have saved his life.
You could have saved his life. Just a smile. I always smile at strangers on the street because just that one. I'm going to cry now.
Sorry.
It's okay, we're
It's
all
my-
crying. We're all blubbering messes.
It's my fault.
This is the point. No, but this is it. And people are so fucking like they have their faces on and their game face. You think you have to be something. You don't. Sometimes you just have to. It's
Be.
okay.
It is.
It is. It's an upsetting subject and it's an emotional subject and it's all okay.
And it's like a taboo subject. It's like, people are too scared to talk about it because of fear of judgment.
Because
or
of this.
because of this or fear
Or
of being
labels.
put in that box. Correct. The label of you've got mental health issues or you're you're this or you're that. And it's like, we're not a can. Cans are designed to have labels on them, not humans. And we're just human.
You know what? My fucking label changes from 1 minute
Oh,
to the
same.
next. I'm fine with it.
It's like a washing machine, What are you today? Normal? Are you on delicates?
Spin
Are you
cycle.
a spin cycle, heavy duty?
I'm heavy duty today, baby.
It comes back to it's okay to feel.
Yeah.
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 It is simply okay to feel. You don't have to be happy every day of the week,
No,
Really?
you don't.
but you don't have to be sad every day of the week either.
no,
It's a moment of feeling that feeling.
And it can be moment to moment. It's not day
That's
to
it.
day.
It's not day to day.
Absolutely.
It's
Every
a
minute to
moment.
minute.
There's no
Before we came in here, how much of a steam was coming out of my ear? I was like,
It's like I call we're believed to that from social media and all this stuff. You got to be positive and
Yeah.
positive. That's toxic as well. I call that toxic
even worse.
positivity. It
it is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It really is.
If you come
Wish
back
we had a camera on you, Lex.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to get him on here.
Yeah. Would
One
you like
day,
to come
one
sit
day.
here between
but
us?
it's the feeling. Like the problem is and where it leads to is this our inability to feel a feeling and let it pass. People get trapped in society. They
overanalyze it. Hey,
Mhm.
Yeah.
they get caught in their head.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's caught in their head, and that's like for me when I attempted to do what I tried to do to myself in 2016, I had one of the worst days at work. There was a massive storm at the Port of Brisbane. It destroyed the container parks. I let down a heap of customers. We were in our busiest time. It was grain harvest, and I got abused by two of my major clients because
And
I
it's-
couldn't.
You felt like a failure.
I felt like a complete failure.
Yeah.
And then I combined it to what was going on in my personal life.
That's the trigger to me.
And it just triggered
Yeah.
it
Stupid.
triggered everything rather than just sitting back and going, really, I can't control that a storm destroyed
No.
our
Do you know if
But
I
you don't
remove
think
those
of that at the
elements,
time,
though,
though, do
Lex,
you?
if I remove those elements, right, work pressure,
Mm.
because it is a big thing, right? The need of like having to prove myself out in the world.
Absolutely.
And
The
if I just
validation again.
right, so if I just buggered off to a beach and just live my life out, I wouldn't. I really honestly believe that I wouldn't be as. I wouldn't be the way or think the way that I have been thinking or do think. But then having said that, I've always had those pressures since I was a kid. So
One of the things I did was I jumped on a surfboard,
Yeah, I was about.
and
yeah.
I surfed when I was a kid, and a mate of mine, he's like, let's go. So I jumped on one of his, paddled out. You don't hear a thing. Your mind goes silent for the first time in years. You're not thinking about anything. Like the life you're trying to get away from is on the water. It's on the beach. You know.
I have such a pull to the ocean.
It's very
Mm.
energetic.
For me, I make jewelry, and this is we talk about it all the time. But like people are like, oh, can I? How much to make one? I'm like, no. This is the one thing that's just for me.
For yourself.
Yeah.
I don't do it for money.
Yeah.
I do it
For your own
therapy.
for your own therapy.
Cheaper than
yeah.
therapy.
Finding
And
your
it's prettier.
joy.
Do you think
Yeah.
like being spontaneous or not being spontaneous enough has caused a lot of dramas because everyone's locked into a schedule and they have to be here, they have to do
Yeah.
that, and we have to be at work, and we have to go and see the parents, and
Too much pressure.
Pressure.
On
yeah,
ourselves.
how about just get in the car and just drive somewhere?
Yeah,
Well,
just being.
we've lost the inability to just be.
Yeah.
As a society, as people, we're always, you talk to people and I've got to be here and I've got to do this and I've got to do this and this and this and this, rather than just hang on, what comes back to just being for you?
Absolutely. Me
How,
time.
how do you come back and just center into yourself? Feel what you need to feel. Let it pass.
Mm.
Like it's a build-up of a feeling and an emotion that you're not expressing and you're not sharing, and you internalize it. For me, that's what I did. I internalized everything, and I told myself I was a failure. I wasn't a failure.
I have and I still struggle with it. Like I struggle with actually talking about it because I feel like I'm going to embarrass my parents or my family, or
You
like
don't want to bother them either.
it's not so much that for me. And I get that everybody's experience is different, but for me, it's kind of there's a fear of me sharing my story because of other pressures.
Yeah.
Like because I also appreciate that my experience is not always my
Someone
mum's
else's,
experience or
yeah.
my dad's or my sister's or my brother or my auntie or my uncle. They have a different perspective,
Absolutely.
right? And so sometimes, and you do, and especially when you go through a lot of traumatic things in your childhood or your life or whatever, you kind of also tell yourself that maybe you're just making more of a deal out of it. Maybe you're just blowing it out of proportion. And the fucked up thing is you get in your cycle.
Yeah.
You can't talk about it because you start to talk about it. It's very heavy.
Then you drink.
And then you drink.
Yeah.
And then you talk
Or you
about
take
it.
drugs, or you do.
Well, you buffer.
things.
You buffer
Yeah.
to stop the
Yeah.
feeling, and you
Yeah.
think it's going to be okay. You drink, or you take drugs, or
Yeah.
you become
I drink.
you
Yeah.
you take an
Cheers with
addiction.
the water.
I've got water.
But you use an addiction to buffer over
Yeah.
the top of the feeling. But until you actually feel the feeling and express the feeling, doesn't matter what you do over the top. It's the same as they'll give you prescription drugs.
Crazy.
They'll
The
give
worst,
you,
no.
it doesn't
The
work
worst.
because
It's
it
a
just
Band-Aid.
it's a Band-Aid. It's just exactly right, Renee. It's a Band-Aid over feeling the feeling. We've got to learn how to express our feelings. We've got to learn to be able to communicate them, but actually feel them and know that it's okay to feel your feelings. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to feel
But
everything.
they don't
And
teach
it's
you.
okay. Go on, sorry.
They don't teach you this at school.
No, they don't.
They don't
teach
you
But they don't
shit
want
about
us to know
life.
this, though.
But imagine if there was, say, the three of us or the four of us standing in front of a high school kids
Mm.
in an assembly.
Mm.
What are their ages? Between 13 and
And 17.
yeah,
Mhm.
and which is the prime age where you actually learn
Oh, yeah.
to be who you want to be or start.
And then it all starts with the first 5 years, because that's where the paradigms in a child as well, what they hear, what they see, what they feel in their environment that they're in.
I just want to pick up with what you
Yeah.
said. Like and it is okay to have those feelings, but it's also important to understand that it's okay to have others not understand your
Mhm.
feelings and be okay with putting yourself out there and having other people respond not the way that you expect.
Yes.
Because some people just go, oh, she's been an attention seeker.
Yeah.
Oh, God, get over it. Oh,
Well,
there's worse.
then you move that person on in your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
And you find
Get-
the person that will.
But that's
listen.
that's a rational thought from a rational situation, and quite often in those situations you're having irrational thoughts, so therefore you can't think rationally.
Yeah.
Which is why I think people end up actually going through with suicide.
Tell you what's good. Turn your phone off for 3 days.
Oh,
Is that fun?
It's amazing.
I've never done it.
and even
It's
as you go to sleep
amazing.
at night,
Turn it on.
put on airplane mode.
I do at night. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do switch it off. Yeah.
Get rid of it. The first thing you do is you wake up in the morning, you grab your phone.
That's the worst thing to do.
When I,
Scroll.
when I was
Yeah.
younger, I used to wake up, grab a cigarette.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
I
I
used to,
remember
yeah.
those days.
And I reckon that was a lot better for you than grabbing your phone.
Because you're taking a breath.
Yeah.
You're taking
Yeah.
a breath, and this is the
Regardless
thing.
of whether it's toxic or not.
Me,
Yeah, yeah.
It's me time, isn't it?
It's me time, and that's the thing that we've lost. We've lost our ability to be able to feel and process emotion and move emotion and move. Yes, I'll move closer to the mic. Just being shoved, but we've lost that ability to actually be able to feel our emotions and learn how powerful our body is and how powerful we are in our own being to be able to process what is going on. The mind, if we allow our mind to take control, it'll run the
Oh,
agenda.
absolutely.
This is what happens when, like for me, I let my mind take control and run the agenda and saying, life's not going to be any good with this. I just need to end it. It doesn't end by ending this physical life.
No, because it continues.
The
in
trauma's there.
Yeah.
It stays. You don't process it. It comes again.
Do you know? And Lex and I, we've actually been to an amazing lady, V. Shout out to V. She explained it to me in a way that I've never had it explained before. Right? So you speak to all sorts of different people on the journey you go through, and you're like, got to speak to a psychologist, I speak to healers, you got to speak to as many people as you can to try and understand what the fuck your brain is doing. And V explained it to me in as much as it's like a filing cabinet, your brain. So it can throw out any thought at all, right?
Absolutely.
And because that's our consciousness, so it's like your actual soul, your inner, the actual life force in you is in control, not your brain.
Absolutely.
It is your gut, the feelings,
Gut
the
feeling,
gut
yeah.
feelings and everything else. So the biggest thing that you can do is tell your brain, thank you for that thought. What else have you got?
Yeah.
Show me something else.
The problem is, sorry.
Sorry, no, you.
Oh, everyone tries to tell you, you got to really think that through. You got to think about that before you actually go ahead with something. Even though your gut's like, mate, run 1,000 miles,
what are you
run. You get that fight or flight. Oh no, people told me I have to think about it. I'll make a rash decision.
Or just even like a step on from that, really go, you're not in control, brain. Wait,
Master
excuse me.
your thoughts.
That's awesome. Great. Thanks. Cheers. What else do you have? Show me something else.
But the other,
and it will.
sorry, Renee.
I was just going to say another thing as well.
We
Where
need a mic and a camera for this guy.
yeah,
This guy.
where like I was saying before, the first 5 years of a child is the paradigm. It's where the subconscious is set, and our brains are very clever. So from what we've been taught as a kid and soaked up, our brain then goes, okay, when things come in, it processes in a split second, and our brain decides whether or not it's going to delete it, distort it, or keep it.
Yeah.
Like that filing.
Correct.
Again, right?
Yeah.
And so in that moment, without us even realizing, our subconscious is filing. And what I call, do you remember the old days where you would, what was it called? You would, it's on the tip of my tongue, the old computers, and you would configure,
Defrag.
Run a defrag.
Defrag. Yes.
Love it.
So
Those 90s people, I totally understand what she's saying.
absolutely defragmenting. So our mind defragments within a split second of us not even realizing what it's doing.
Yeah.
And so I think that, when we master our thoughts, and it's okay to feel what we're feeling, sit in it, feel it, think, and go, okay, this is what I'm feeling now. And what's the opposite of that? And that's how I got through a lot of my stuff. What's the opposite of that? If I'm feeling like I'm not worthy, well, what would I be if I was worthy?
What are those thoughts?
Yeah,
what are those
thoughts?
feelings?
What does that feel like?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to start sitting in this feeling now.
Yeah.
Or I might go to the beach. Or I feel like I'm going to eat my favorite sandwich because I feel joy. Or I feel like I might go and be in my garden because that brings me joy. And then focusing on the opposite of what it is.
You know what? But on the step on back, to those suicidal thoughts, quite often you get to those points where I want to do those things, and then I get for me, I get in a
Overwhelmed.
cycle. I get into a cycle of resentment in my own
Yeah.
head. I want to go and do these things. I want to go to the beach. I want to go and do this. I can't fucking can do that because I've got to do this and I've got to do that and I've got these people. And it just goes around and around. The more I think about it, the more I get more angry and head up.
The big thing about it, Hayley, and this
Big
is it.
brother.
Yeah. Well, sorry.
Hello.
No,
a camera-
it's
Put a
okay.
camera on him.
The big.
He's pretty to look at.
Oh, sometimes. The big thing, are these actually our thoughts? If you think about, I'm not the only one that's had suicidal thoughts.
No.
You've had them.
Yeah,
I think every
Every-
single
every-
person.
We all have.
So-
yeah.
If you think of thoughts as something that's floating around in the Wi-Fi of this planet,
The quantum.
the quantum field, it's there. You're not the only person that's had these thoughts.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that I think a lot of people go, I just can't see a future. I can't see a way out.
Mm.
They're not your thoughts. They're not genuinely your real thoughts.
Yeah.
We all share this collective. If you look at what's going on in the world at the moment with COVID,
Yeah.
this world's in a fear state.
You said
Yeah,
that
it is.
word,
Why-
Lex.
why do we-
Who's created the fear state?
That's another
That's a-
podcast.
That's a whole other
Let's
podcast.
write that down
But
for
if-
next week. Yeah.
But
So-
if we look at the fear, if we look at that creation of fear that's around, and everyone, like, they make an announcement, Queensland, we're going into lockdown, Brisbane, we're going into lockdown at 6 p.m. tonight. Everyone goes nuts and goes
And they
shopping,
buy toilet
Mm.
paper.
and they buy toilet paper,
I know.
and everyone buys it. Not one person, everyone does.
Herd mentality.
So is it their thought, or is it the thought of everybody?
Mm.
So
yeah.
when we look at
That's
these
good.
thoughts and,
Yeah.
and you look at thoughts, it's interesting if you can step back from it and
It
go,
doesn't belong to me.
that thought's not my thought. It's interesting. Thank you for presenting it to me, but I'm going to let it pass on by,
Mm.
and I'm going to choose a better outcome.
Interested, but
I like
I
that.
am, and I'm not. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
I think a big problem with what you're saying with the lockdowns and with that side of things, I think the media's got 100% to blame for that,
Absolutely, they
Mm.
do.
because people look at it and go, "Oh my god!" And for the first time in many people's lives, they've been faced with the reality of maybe death.
Yeah, absolutely. And what
Everyone
do people
can't
do when they're
take
in
it.
fear? They
Yeah.
look for a solution.
That's right.
Yeah.
Toilet paper.
Yeah.
100%. And do you know what? Do you know how many times did we see come up in the media and social media? Okay, so we've got all these COVID deaths. This is what's happening, blah, 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 blah. And then people like try. But what about the mental health and the suicide
They
deaths?
don't. They
as a
don't want to
result?
mention that.
No one covered it,
No, they
It's
don't
more
want
deaths
to.
from
which is even
suicide.
worse because then you feel even more helpless and you can't be heard.
Do you know what I thought as well? And because I took note this time, right? So the very first lockdown that happened, I know we're off subject of suicide, but the first lockdown that we had, there was no toilet paper anywhere on any shelves. Like,
Kitty litter. Heaps
How
of
upsetting.
kitty litter.
oh,
I said to people, "Get in your box."
yeah, I'll remember that
What
the
did
next
you
time,
do?
Ziggy.
I was walking down Woolies and there was no toilet paper. And like I had my mum at the time ring me in tears because, you know,
There's
she
no toilet paper.
couldn't use
There's
toilet
legit-
paper.
I was one of those people. I was like, I didn't stock up on toilet paper. Now I'm not
Absolutely,
No.
how
Toilet paper.
ridiculous.
And there was
know,
there was
yeah.
one guy had a trolley full of tissues and I was like, "Mate, kitty litter, plenty of it, get in your box."
yeah.
And there was probably 20 people there to start laughing.
Yeah,
So if you want to, you know, you want to be stupid, there's this,
I
you
had
know,
to go for the
Yeah.
scratchy stuff. That's all that was left on the shelf. Oh, what-
But it's this ability, like this is the
They sold
exact
out
thing.
that too.
This is the reason why suicide happens,
yeah,
because as a community, as a society,
Mm.
we don't take the time to go, you know what, how do I support someone else?
Mhm.
How do I stop for that minute?
yeah.
Why do I need 20 packs of toilet paper?
No, no,
Greed.
Why can't I stop and take that moment to see that my fellow sister, brother,
Mm.
you know, we're a village.
Yeah, but we haven't been educated to be like that, right?
No, we haven't. But
Every
you know,
man
why
for
have we,
themselves.
why that's the problem. Everyone's become very orientated around,
Self-absorbed.
focused on what can I have, what can I take, how can I live. The big thing is, and this is why suicide happens, because someone feels left behind.
Mm.
They're left behind, or they don't feel appreciated, they don't feel love.
but
As
the
a
problem-
community, that's where it's got to come back to. If you bring it back to, you can see what we're doing, even in times of despair or in COVID, where we've been pushed in different ways. Why can't we stop as a human race and go, you know what, we're going to be okay. We're going to get through this. Yes,
course.
there's going to be some deaths.
Mm.
That's happening, but
Mm.
you know, let's be okay with that. But let's support everyone through this. It's the same with suicide. People need someone to turn to.
Absolutely.
And you don't know who that person's going to be. You don't know that moment. It can be in traffic. Someone's having a bad day.
Yeah.
You see road rage.
You
Yeah.
said that.
It
Last
can be in
one,
that
yeah.
instant.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's like the guy that was
100%,
having a cup of coffee and you made him a cup of coffee. It's
Yeah.
as simple as that. Being able to see that and feel and help that person.
It's just being a human being, really,
Yeah.
isn't it?
You know, like
A good human being.
I'm gonna talk about things like "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
Which is great, and I love the hashtag movement, social kind of like vibe of like people going just checking in on people, but it feels so fucking empty, right? Because yeah, it's cool to have the hashtag "Are you okay?" and you can be seen to be doing your bit, but
But do
are
they
you?
care?
Do you
No,
actually
they don't
care?
care.
Yeah, no.
And I think that we need to, as a society, take it a step further. I think we do. And it's
Yeah.
not just, it should never be just a hashtag. If you can, you should. I mean, it's
we're
simple
more
as
than a hashtag, right?
weird shit, right? Today, like the other week, I literally was shopping at Aldi and this lady was like, oh, that's my yogurt. And I was like, yeah, I just paid for it because it just came through on my thing, right? And rather than me, and I know this sounds silly, she wasn't acting suicidal or anything like that, but you can do the small acts of kindness, the small things.
You just gave it to her.
Yeah, I said like, happy birthday, bought you yogurt.
Well, it's like a $5 coffee. End of the day, you can
Yeah.
make $5 back next week.
100%.
You know,
So can't we do that?
Yeah.
You know, we can change the course of someone's life, their trajectory can be completely set off in a completely different direction by something as simple as buying a cup of coffee.
Or smiling
Or
at a
smiling.
stranger.
I think you have to. I think a lot of people have to just sit back. And I've always been one to sit in a cafe or a nightclub or a restaurant and just watch.
Yeah, I do the same.
And just watch people, watch how they react, who they interact with.
What's going on in their life, how
Yeah.
they're feeling, what is it stemming from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, I want to say a huge thank you to both of you. Siggy, for being so open and real and raw and open to talking, because I know it's hard for you and I really
It's hard for
appreciate
everybody, I guess. So
it really is. And I really appreciate you coming on and being just you
thank you.
and being open to talking about it. You're always an awesome guest anyway. So
Thank you very
and
much.
Renee, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your experiences, because I know that we didn't even touch on her story, guys, like and the reasons why behind our thoughts and everything else. So
Yeah, they always stem from somewhere, right?
yeah, well, we'll get there.
Yeah.
And I want to say, you guys, thank you very much for watching. Please go and follow us on all of our platforms. We have YouTube, we have Instagram, we have TikTok. We're pretty much everywhere. So go and find us on Obsessed Hub.
And can
Thanks
I
for
just
joining
say
us.
one thing to
Go
a
nuts.
comment that keeps coming up? Her name keeps popping in my head. I even wrote her name down on my notepad. Deb, who commented, "You aren't alone.
No,
You're not alone. Like, you
You're
know,
not.
reach out to someone."
Well, we've had rolling on the bottom of the screen the whole time. If you or anybody that you know needs help, please contact Lifeline Australia 131114.
Can I also just say, and I admitted to say a huge thank you to Lex, and he is
Yeah,
the
thank
Big
you for
Brother
sharing.
voice that was happening in the background.
the voiceover.
Yeah, he's bloody brilliant.
Thanks,
Yes.
Nat. Thanks, Hayley.
No, you're
Appreciate it.
welcome. He's a legend. And it takes courage to talk about the topic that we're talking about today and be able to laugh, cry, circle back around. God, that word. Hold on.
Yeah.
You know, and go in different directions with it and be able to come out on top. So I really enjoyed today, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank
you.
you.
See you again next
Guys.
time.